When you think of London, what comes to mind? Maybe it's Big Ben, or perhaps it's the winding River Thames, or maybe it's glistening skyline or world-beating cultural institutions. There's its history, of course, Shakespeare's Globe, there's St. Paul's, and the city's venerable pubs. I personally don't think you can beat a pint at the prospect of Whitby when it's raining, particularly if it's a nice porter. Well, that's what normal people generally think of London, but not the Tories.
London, a city steeped in history. But tonight, its ancient streets bear witness to a different tale. A tale not of kings and queens, but of crime and desperation. It is a city now run by the Labour Party. Its police answer to them. It is a blueprint for how Labour intend to run the rest of the country, if you let them. In the depths of these narrow passageways tread squads of ULEZ enforcers dressed in black, faces covered with masks, terrorizing communities at the beck and call of their Labour mayor master, who's implemented a tax on driving, forcing people to stay inside or go underground. Gripped by the tendrils of rising crime, London citizens stay inside. The streets are quiet. Quieter at night now than they used to be. A 54% increase in knife crime since the Labour mayor seized power has the metropolis teetering on the brink of chaos. And in the chaos, people seek a desperate reprieve, egged on by the Labour mayor who wants to decriminalize the use of illegal drugs. London's drug death rate is at a record high. But this isn't just London, where Labour are in charge. Crime goes up and justice goes down. For people living life under Labour, like the citizens of London, the scales of justice remain tipped in favour of the darkness, leaving them to navigate the shadows alone.
I can honestly say that's the most insane, weirdest political advert I've ever seen. When it pans out to the world, it's like Labour world. Nobody Labour world. Like, this is crazy. I know what's happened there. There's a video producer. They wanted to use that effect and they just wanted to get it in. It doesn't really work, doesn't really make sense. I suppose that doesn't matter because not much made sense there. In terms of the facts, London is a very safe city. It's the 14th safest city in the world, apparently. I mean, I lived here 15 years, I was fine. I know bad stuff happens, but also you have to remember 8.5 million people live here. I think that's kind of important context. Sadiq Khan has been elected twice. He hasn't seized power. There's a diametric opposite to seizing power undemocratically. That's winning democratic elections. So he's done the opposite of seizing power. He's won legally. Thirdly, the police don't answer to the Labour Party or to the mayor. They do in part to the mayor, but ultimately the Metropolitan Police Service is answerable to the Home Secretary. You might have noticed that's a Conservative for the last 14 years. And on ULEZ, that's enforced by cameras and computers, not by black-clad masked enforcers or people in balaclavas or thugs. Even more hilariously, the Tories first published a version of that video that contained footage from a totally different city. It showed a scene of a stampede in the New York City subway and claimed it was London. When they got found out, they quickly edited that video before republishing a version that we just showed you there. For what it's worth, a Tory candidate for London Mayor, Susan Hall, has said the video has nothing to do with her and was created by Conservative Party headquarters. It's nothing to do with me. It was just created by the political party I'm standing for. In response to that Tory fever dream, London Mayor Sadiq Khan said this: I love our city. London is such an amazing place. It makes me angry that the governing party, the Tories, are talking down our capital. It's unpatriotic. How can they aspire to lead a city they don't even seem to like? It's a great point. I personally think we need to give other cities in this country the same level of infrastructure as London. I want Leeds to have a tram. I want Bristol to have a subway. But that doesn't mean you make stuff up about London or hate on it. It's a great place. It has a lot going for it. If they sorted out housing here, it would genuinely be one of the best places in the world, in my view. Helena, I don't like the claim that elections are won from the centre. Firstly, it's not always true. Secondly, the centre can change over time. But it's fair to say that if you want to govern a major country like the UK, you should at least try to look normal.
I actually think that this is not what the Conservatives think. I think there is a market here specifically. I think it's rather a more worrying trend. We've seen a lot of the 15-minute city conspiracy theory panic coming from members of the Conservative, or even front bench, as well as some backbenchers as well, talking about all the scary ULS totalitarian state that Sadiq Khan is ushering in. And I think that there is a certain section of the public that can be swayed by this. The people who are scared about the crime of London, the people who think about all the encroachment of what the expanding of cities takes their kind of rural area that they live in, for example, scaring people about the perspective of what it might be like if they were like London. And of course, talking about the ULS cameras being, all part of this kind of anti-motorist campaign, which is a lot of this, is funneled through the kind of think tanks into get people into this 15 minutes conspiracy theory kind of pipeline. There's a really great philosophy tube video that was just released discussing this very thing that I highly recommend people go and watch, where there's a certain section of the public who've been kind of taken over by conspiratorial thinking. It's all about World Economic Forum, etc., etc. And so when you create these kind of very strange adverts that kind of play on people's fears, it's kind of like the Nigerian prince scam emails. Like if you want to filter out a lot of the people who wouldn't ever actually want to engage with something that's this kind of what looks very unserious, but could be serious to some people. And broadly, you think, oh, well, why are they bothering? Why are they bothering? The election's over for mayor. And it's true, the election is basically over for mayor. Susan Hall is an incredibly bad candidate. Their second choice, by the way, behind somebody who was accused of groping somebody. That's how low the candidacy is now for the Conservative London mayor election. And so that's basically over. But you'll notice it was all about Labour-run London. Labour-run London. We'll mention Sadiq Khan, but it's really actually more about the national picture, as well as all of this specific kind of conspiratorial nature about like ULEZ and what the scary crime of the inner cities looks like. But on top of that, broadly, the Conservative Party know that one place where they usually pull ahead of Labour on is on law and order and crime and punishment and things like that. So trying to make the microcosm of London, which isn't actually true, it's a kind of popular lie about how dangerous London specifically is internationally, whatever it might be, and say, well, if you elect Labour nationally, it might be like what we are telling you that London is like. That might be their way of being able to get into this. Although it is quite funny that it does remind me a lot of the kind of campaigning that Zach Goldsmith engaged in when he was trying to be London mayor. And also it kind of dovetails into what Lee Anderson was saying as well, by trying to paint London as this city within a city, or this place outside of England, where, of course, most people in London understand this kind of multicultural city that a lot of people live in. But the way they've been painting like the continual marches, for example, the Palestinian marches, as being the scary extremists, it's very clear they're trying to create this image of what London looks like, and then using that as a campaign message for everybody else outside of that, essentially to play on the fear reflexes of people who are natural Tory voters who might leave them on literally everything else that they failed on. Because they can't run on anything else, can they?
It's also funny to me, they say in that ad, they want to decriminalize drugs. Well, I feel like the person that made this video is on drugs. So I don't know what that tells me about their recreational habits. There's a great book by a gentleman called Richard Hofstadter. He talks about the emergence of the paranoid style in American politics, deeply connected to the emergence of a new kind of conservatism in post-war America. And for me, that video just encapsulates the paranoid style. But a few things. Look, firstly, the Tories have only ever won the London mayor with one guy, Boris Johnson, right? This role has existed now since the early 2000s. It's only been won by Ken Livingstone, Boris Johnson, Ken Livingstone multiple times, Boris Johnson multiple times, Sadiq Khan multiple times. They didn't win it with this kind of campaign. And I hear what you're saying, Helena. They're priming the electorate for a series of messages that are actually national, not focused on London. But I find it strange. You win London against, by the way, a very formidable outfit with Ken Livingstone. You win with Boris Johnson on positivity, a bit of banter, fundamentally, not going to change anything. He was talking about what a great place London is. It's the center of the world. Your candidate for London mayor is part of a campaign saying how shit London is. And I do think actually this is a broader problem for the Conservatives going forward, right? It's a real problem if you're saying how bad everything is when you've been in charge for 14 years. You can do that when you're the opposition. When you've been the party of government for 1.5 decades, it's less easy. And by the way, people also don't like a Debbie Downer. Sometimes they like a smile and somebody to say something positive. I think, by the way, that's a big problem for right-wing media in this country. As much as they're growing, GB News wants to overtake BBC and Sky by 2028. I think they probably will. I think they'll certainly overtake Sky News. You have to be positive because the negative stuff only goes so far.